Exactly. Like, are there any like particular areas that you're?
Hey, can I just let me just stop everything for a second? Unfortunately, I have to do a live test. Go ahead and talk, Mike.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay, I think everything is good, but I need to go. Unfortunately, because of the way that everything is set up, I have to actually do it this way. Hold on, Julio Rivera, Lantern, Spreaker, and I want to make sure that this is going ahead and actually working. Julio Rivera, Lantern, Lanterns, Spreaker, and then we may already be on. But yeah, it's like kind of one of those things. Hold on, Julio Rivera, Lantern, Spreaker. Oh, for the love of God. Lanterns Radio Network. Let's see what's on Lanterns. It's probably me right now rambling. Lanterns. Alright, we should actually probably be on. Hold on.
But I hope, and let me know if this works out better for you that I switched the camera buttons.
Yeah. 6 foot tall lawn Santa, but then people on the coast think that's
Open with Chrome. There you go.
What's that? Park. But you probably get run over in the parking lot. Yeah, it looks like
I just want to make sure that it's being heard here, which it will in just a second. Hello? Michael?
Yeah. We good?
Hello? Can you hear me, Michael?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hello? We good?
Hello? Can you hear me, Michael?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. And that's how things are when you're in the bootleg world. All right, so we're going to officially start the show in 2 minutes, okay? So just stay on with me, okay?
I will.
All right. Can you what?
Participate a little bit with the interview.
Of course.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, dude. This is how it is. All right. So we are going live in 3, 2, 1. For the people who are already listening, I apologize for my lack of professionalism.
You're listening to the #1 source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. #Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Julio Rivera Show is on.
Live continuing coverage from Politicon 2016. My name is Julio Rivera. Today on Saturday, June 25th, we find ourselves in Los Angeles for the first time ever. I've never gone further west than Las Vegas in my life, so a nice welcome to the West Coast. And I'm actually very lucky to be joined by my friend who's originally a West Coaster here, my friend Adam Garnica, attorney Adam Garnica, and small business expert, will be joining me for a lot of this coverage. And we're going to go ahead and start off. On this show, what we like to do is we like to take down-ticket candidates and we like to ask them questions regarding the issues. Because the issues is all that matters, really. What are we here for to discuss if it's not the issues? So we're lucky to be joined with running for Congress in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. We have Mr. Michael Webb. And how are you today, Michael?
I'm doing great, Julio. I wish I was in California.
Yeah, you know what? It's beautiful out here. I'm a New York guy. Actually from New Jersey originally, but just being here in this area is actually spectacular. It's beautiful. The women are beautiful. The weather is beautiful. I'm just so happy to be here. But no, it is. It definitely, most definitely is. So tell us what's going on right now as far as what's your strategy. You're running as an independent now, and you did lose in the actual Republican primary, but your campaign is still alive. And you are a conservative. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with you as your day-to-day operation right now as you're running for this congressional seat in Virginia.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess really, I mean, like, I guess like technically there are some changes in terms of what we are doing right now because we don't have the I guess like the party blessing. And we don't have that, I guess, like a traditional, I guess, like 34% that the Republican Party normally gets every time, whether it's Mickey Mouse running or whether it's whoever. So basically, what we have to do is we have to kind of do a little reorganizing. But that 34% was not going to win us the ticket. It wasn't going to win the race in November anyway. We would still have to do what we're doing now, which is basically going out to those people that I like to say are asleep in the faith. Those Reagan Democrats, those people that are with us on the issues but don't know that they're conservatives yet. I was with the libertarians today, talking about the people that don't know that they're libertarians. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going out to those folks and really just trying to get the support that we need to at least make a good showing in November. And you never know in this year what might happen. We've got a lot of things that are going on in this race that may actually upset a lot of people.
Hey, Michael, this is Adam Garnica right here. I'm actually a Northern Virginia resident. Thank you, Julio, for the introduction. Quick question: do you actually think that your job would be that much more difficult without having a one of the two prime parties behind you? And secondly, do you feel like you're actually playing behind, having to educate people that they actually are libertarians, as you mentioned? Yeah. Do you think it'll make your job that much more difficult? I think if I actually, my research is correct, you're running as an independent candidate. Do you think that? Yeah. Do you think it'll make your job that much more difficult trying to make the marketing pitch to these?
Sure. I mean, like the thing is that I mean, like as sad as it is, a lot of people are not informed voters. A lot of folks basically vote like they shop. They shop for the label. There was a recent study that was done looking at even just how we vote within our party. They asked Democrats and Republicans what they thought of their party's education platform, and they laid it out in terms of exactly what it was. 80% of Democrats, 80% of Republicans said, "I like my party plan." But then what the researchers did was they got a little tricky. They came back and they asked again those same people what they thought of their party's platform, but reversed the positions. 95% of Democrats said that they liked their party position, and 95% of Republicans said they liked their party position. They didn't realize that somebody had done a switcheroo on.
Okay, Mike. So, do you actually identify yourself as a libertarian currently?
No, I'm still conservative. But I do have some libertarian views, especially in things in terms of like justice reform, marijuana. Even gay marriage. I mean, I have no problem with the government saying that you can do that because I don't think that the government should begin any of the benefits.
In this next presidential election, who do you actually see yourself supporting? Gary Johnson? Are you a Gary Johnson guy?
I'm still weighing. I guess like if I was with the Republican Party, I would be kind of tied in terms of that would be my candidate, and I would have no problem as a Republican going for Donald Trump. Now I have an opportunity as an independent to kind of reassess. When you're a candidate, there are a lot of other factors that go into who you're going to support for president.
I mean,
sure.
Yeah, Mike. Not to actually give you a hard time, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I actually understand that logic. I mean, I think ideologies actually, dictate whom you support. I mean, whether or not you're, a member of the Republican Party, whether or not you have, if you actually have strong conservative, basic ideologies, why wouldn't you support, the most conservative candidate in the race, and whomever that may be from your own judgment? I'm not sure who that actually is at this point in time between Donald Trump and Gary Johnson, but I would imagine your ideological background would dictate, who you should support in this race.
Well,
But,
if I could just jump in for a second, and this is Julio Rivera joining you back. Gary Johnson is no conservative. I don't know where would anybody, like, I understand some people identify libertarianism as being close to conservatism, but if you're an open borders guy and you're not a Milton Friedman where you believe in, okay, we can have open borders, but we can't have an entitlement society. And Gary Johnson seems to be on the fence on both. I mean, he's not taking a clear position on any of it.
That's very true. That's very true. And the thing is that I'm like, now, since I'm kind of new to being an independent and not having to go to the Republican candidate, I haven't even looked really at what Johnson's positions are on different. I'm really kind of looking to see whether or not that is Johnson.
Yeah, I definitely understand. Obviously, your hands are obviously you're pretty busy, trying to basically managing your own, you're basically working on your own, election, chances. And how's that going as far as like the fundraising, if you don't mind, me asking?
Fundraising right now, I mean, like again, it's kind of a challenge because now I'm only relying on basically those places where I guess like the people that I know, and also the organizations that are aligned with issues that I support. And I'm kind of at a plus because even though I don't have the Republican, I guess like ticket endorsement going out, I have got 30 years of basically activism in our issues. Life. In fact, I'll be at the National Right to Life Convention on July 7th to the 9th, and at the Supreme Court on Monday for this Supreme Court decision that's going to be coming up this week. VCDL, NRA, the Republican nominee, he does not have those credentials, and he hasn't even said that he supports those issues.
How would you actually, like, what's the most like glaring, I guess, attribute that differentiates yourself from the Republican nominee in your district?
I'm a conservative.
Okay. The current guy's not a conservative, you think?
Well, no. In fact, he's self-confessed it's not conservative. He went to the Washington Post and said, I'm a moderate to climate change.
Got you.
You know what? In the state of Virginia, it's interesting, too, because, and I discussed this with you when we were going through the whole Cruz primary, there's a lot of big government Republicans in Virginia because it's the proximity to D.C., so a lot of the people that live there, they feed off of that big government machine.
Yeah, it's a very, very big establishment locale out there in Northern Virginia, for better or worse. It depends on how you actually like stand.
I would say for worse, personally.
I would say from worse too, personally. But yeah, please, Mike, please, like basically, please share your opinions too.
Yeah, sure. I guess, but the thing is that like in terms of folks that actually work for the government in our district, although we do have a large proportion of people that do work for the government, only 24% of our residents work for the government, and that's broken down by state and also federal. A lot, of course, federal. Only 2% of our residents are active duty military, and that kind of dictates in terms of whether or not they.
Is that just your district? That's not Virginia in general. That's your
no,
district.
that's just our district. That's just our district.
Yeah.
That's just our. Yeah.
So you're not near Norfolk in a sense, then, right? No. Your district is outside of that military district. Okay, yeah. I just wanted to kind of get from a proximity standpoint where exactly he is. All right, let me ask you this, Mike, because we kind of got into it last time, and unfortunately, because of the issue that we had, we weren't able to really get through it all. But tell us a little bit more about the piece of legislation that you're proposing, the Sentinel program, which I think is very, very interesting, and actually I think is a very positive thing from what I was made to understand. But why don't you go ahead and describe that to our listeners? Yeah,
sure. The Sentinel program, I had I guess like two things I was looking at in terms of doing with the military. Folks that are coming off active duty. One portion for folks that were enlisted, another portion for folks that had served as officers. The Sentinel program is really the officer side of it. Basically, what we're going to try to do is we are going to give folks that are separating from active duty, and only active duty unless you were in the reserves and National Guard and you were deployed to a combat theater. We could probably bring you into this. But right now we're looking just primarily at folks that are separating from active duty that were officers whose primary issue weapon was the 9mm. What we're going to do is, if you're separating from active duty right now, we will give you a 9mm instead of giving you another flag that you don't need, another trophy case that you don't need. Let's give them a 9mm. But also what we're going to do is we're going to give them law enforcement carrying privileges of a federal law enforcement officer. So this way, with just a little bit of tinkering, we can actually put them on a plane with that the federal air marshal. We can put them in a school where a lot of our guys are transitioning into becoming teachers and things like that. Now they can bring that weapon into that place, that gun-free zone, and now we have a hidden person inside.
So, Mike, this is Adam Garnica here, commenting on that.
Yeah.
Are there any limitations to that, or is it basically like blanket authority for anybody who is a current or former military officer to actually carry a 9mm? Any limitations? I mean,
I guess there's going to have to be some sort of, like paper trail to actually issue the actual permit. So this way, when they go through the TSA line, and they will have to basically kind of like a pre-screen in order to get onto that plane.
I guess what I'm trying to basically lead into is like one example. Do you think like a 90-year-old as a former military officer that might not necessarily have all his mental faculties should be permitted to basically carry a 9mm gun and into basically onto the airplane free without any type of questioning by TSA?
Well, that's an interesting thing, which actually raises two questions. One, is it good for them to do it? Also, two, is it are they even going to think to do that? That's actually two very, very interesting questions. One is that even if you're a federal law enforcement officer, if you are not competent to carry a gun, you can't carry that gun. So yes, of course, the permit's going to be revoked. But also the thing is that only 1%, no, 2%, no, 1% of persons that are eligible to join the military actually join the military. And that is exactly how small a number of people will actually go out and actually do something in terms of, yes, I'm going to have this gun and I'm going to use it in defense of everybody else that's on this airplane or in this school. The hero factor really that alone tricks a lot of the folks that are actually going to do it.
And Mike, may I ask you it's a semi-personal question? You don't necessarily have to answer one way or the other.
No.
Do you actually have a permit to carry basically a concealed weapon?
Yes,
in Virginia,
yes, I do.
You do. You hold a permit.
I have a permit. Yeah.
And how often do you carry?
Pretty much all the time.
Yeah, you know what? I don't blame you for that. You never know when something's going to happen.
I can't do it in D.C., but when I'm in Virginia, we have a pretty good gun carry law. So just about any time I'm running around in D.C., not D.C., but in Virginia, I'm definitely carrying.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, again, it's basically to back up what Julio said.
I'm going to the range.
Right.
Okay, and also I wanted to just a couple of questions, because we have to actually delve into that, because what is it all about? It's about the issues. Okay, we kind of got into this last time, but again, because last time the difficulties that we had, we weren't able to really clarify. Now, what is your position as far as handling, according to the Pew Institute, the estimated 11.3 million illegal immigrants that are currently residing within our borders? How does Mike Webb, if you're elected and you go into the House of Representatives, what piece of legislation, or how do you feel that should be legislated, in order to resolve this issue and comprehensive immigration reform under Michael Webb looks like what?
Oh yeah. Sure. It's an interesting thing. It's a hard problem because, just looking at immigration in total.
Okay.
The illegal immigration, the legal immigration. Even if we opened up the doors to everybody to come in, we can only accept 1/3 of the folks that are coming in. We don't have the capacity to absorb that. Illegals make that problem even more problematic, because we can't absorb everything that's coming in. Right now, we only have the resources to, if we wanted to, deport folks, only to deport probably less than 1/3 of folks that we possibly could.
Why do you wait? Well, wait a minute. You just made kind of a blanket statement, so I kind of want to just ask you, based on what do you feel that we can only deport 1/3 of that? Do you think it's a logistical issue? Is it a budget issue? How exactly?
This is a budget issue. This is basically what GAO is saying in terms of what we actually have the funding and capacity to actually do. We don't have the resources to get rid of everybody, even if we wanted to.
Right. Right.
But the thing that we can do things in terms of identifying people that are eligible for the work. One of the I forget the name off the bat of the organization that came up with this. But what they were saying was that rather than relying on something like a social security card, which can be forged, rather than going through the whole, I guess, like normal process that we go through in terms of trying to find out, okay, are you eligible to work with the forms and all this kind of stuff, why not give folks a smart card where you present the smart card and say, okay, I'm definitely eligible to work inside the United States, and I can do these things. This way, we have at least a way of vetting whether or not you're actually eligible for benefits. So this way, we don't have that money going out the door.
Okay, well, that actually doesn't sound like the worst idea that I've heard. But let me ask you. And this is another one that I actually wanted to delve into because it's a hot button issue. Obviously, with what's been going on, obviously with what happened in Orlando, unfortunately, and whatnot. How do you handle? Hillary Clinton has stated publicly that she is for bringing up to 65,000 of the displaced Syrian refugees into our ranks here in the United States of America. As of last year, Barack Obama had signed on to taking 10,000 displaced Syrian refugees within our borders.
Sure.
Where do you stand on that issue? Do you agree with Donald Trump's assertion that we should put a halt to it, which is a kind of a conditional halt if you really analyze what Donald Trump has said? I believe in, personally, a total halt until we can get a handle on the situation. You stop it in its entirety. But where do you feel does America even have a responsibility to take in these people? Okay. So you feel that we do?
Well, actually, I have to qualify that. Do we have a responsibility to take these people in? Well, okay. One, again, like I said, regardless of where they're coming from, we don't have the capacity to bring all these people that are coming in anyway. So we're going to be cutting people off just on that basis because we cannot bring them in legally or even illegally. We don't have the capacity to absorb them into our population. But in terms of folks that are coming to this country, I don't believe that we can sit there and say, okay, just because you are a Muslim, just because you are a Syrian, I'm going to close the door to you. There has to be more of a trigger to say, okay, I'm going to...
Well, let me just stop you there. Isn't the economy the trigger as to say why we couldn't? We're not letting legal immigrants in here.
Oh, yeah,
at this point. We put a halt on that.
Basically, what we have to do is we have to come up with a method that does not offend our principles, our constitutional liberties, to deny folks on, I guess, like economic reasons or for security reasons. This has to be our rationale. It's just like right now with the gun debate. They're talking about taking people and putting on denying them guns because they're on a federal law enforcement watch list. Just because you're on that watch list, that doesn't mean that you're going to walk into a post office and blow people away. There has to be more than just being on that list.
Okay, yeah, because the list is actually anybody can put anybody on a watch list. There has to be a little bit more of accountability towards it.
Right.
Whether it be some type of financial penalty if you're somehow denied the right to be able to carry a gun. That's something that actually one of our guests that we're going to have this weekend, John Hawkins from Right Wing News, suggested that.
He's actually going to be here in Clarendon next week.
He is. Okay, yeah, I love John.
Yeah, sure.
Give him a big hug for me. Anyway.
Oh yeah, I will.
but one of the things that he suggested is that if you are put on a watch list wrongly, then that you should be able to reap some sort of a financial benefit from it, whether it be like some sort of a tort for being wrongly put on it or whatnot. But
right. Ultimately, there is a cause of action if there's some type of abuse of the government.
Yeah, because government is going to be able to use that watch list to its own benefit. If it wants to deny you the right to carry a gun, whether it's justified or not, there has to be some sort of penalty to the government for denying you that right.
But the concern about that, and I'm sure Mike, you probably could support me in this, is that the evidentiary burden, the plaintiff to basically to prove their case that the government somehow discriminated wrongly against the average citizen. that's a difficult burden, to basically for the average plaintiff to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess like the thing with immigration though is that we have a little bit more latitude in terms of how we discriminate people coming into this country.
Right.
We can set a higher bar in terms of saying that, or it's like a lower standard in terms of I guess like accepting security risk, because we're not talking about United States citizens at this point. We're talking about people that are just coming into this country. They do not have citizenship rights.
Right. And they ultimately do not enjoy the same equal protection rights that an American citizen does. Right.
Sure.
And or substantive due process rights as well. So I totally hear you on that point.
You guys are sounding all lawyerly. I feel like I'm lost in the conversation here. No, but you guys go ahead. I'm learning a lot. Go for it.
And so Mike, there's an event over in Clarendon that Mr. Hawkins will be joining. What is that event basically? If you could actually elaborate more on that. And do you know Hawkins personally, like on a personal level, or?
No, I don't. He's going to be speaking for the Leadership Institute. Have a monthly breakfast. We had Albert Guillory last month. We've had many different folks that Morton Blackwell brings into the Leadership Institute. It's probably the best conservative training ground in America. Tons of courses. They even have stuff online. Very, very affordable, and it's probably the best buy in terms of conservative academic education.
Absolutely. Well, like one of my friends is actually, this guy has a doctorate in political science. He says that the training he received at the Leadership Institute was better than anything he learned in 9 years of conventional academia. But did you actually take any of the courses at the Leadership Institute?
I've taken so many courses that I think they just have a permanent name card for me now.
Right. And Mike, would you can you actually talk a little bit about your Jimmy Kimmel experience? And is that something they taught the Leadership Institute to browse porn while you're actually trying to promote your campaign?
No, they didn't teach that. They didn't teach that. But what they did teach, and this is actually in again another plug for the Leadership Institute, is that what they do teach. In fact, Morton Blackwell himself teaches the course in the campaign management course, not the candidate course, but the campaign management course, in terms of how to handle negative information. It's about like a 2-hour block of instruction from Morton Blackwell, how to handle negative information. But also we've got Beverly, goodness gracious, I forget her last name, who does a block on, actually 2 blocks on just like television appearances and the things that you do and the things you don't do. So that was definitely helpful. But in terms of the research, I mean, like I've been doing research since, goodness gracious, since I was in high school. What I always try to do is, if somebody, it's like going to law school. What you want to do is you want to figure out, okay, if somebody is going to make an argument against you, you want to know exactly how are they, you want to reverse engineer their argument. Figure out exactly why they're saying what they're saying. Can you point any holes in it? As a preacher's kid, I have to tell you, my knowledge until recently of porn was very, very little. I've actually been educated on the.
Wow. Well, I actually let me stop you right there. I actually have an extensive knowledge. Unfortunately, but you know what? I'm glad that you don't, because the people that we send to DC probably shouldn't. But that's just my opinion. But anyway, go ahead with what you were saying.
Sure. Well, but the interesting thing is that and this actually came up in not in my American interviews, the few folks that contacted me rather than just putting a story, but in a lot of the international press that kind of picked it up. Their curiosity, very, very libertarian kind of idea. They were like saying, well, why is this even a big deal in America? And I was like, well, I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. But the thing is that, I mean, like, if someone is looking at porn on the internet, and they are an elected official, regardless of whether they're religious or not. I mean, there's not anybody that's religious that is as pure as Jesus Christ anyway. But the thing is that even if they are, if they're not hurting anybody by that, I mean,
it's no big deal. We're all sinners, damn it.
Sure.
I'm a big sinner, but no, I don't see it as a big deal. To be quite honest with you, I don't, you know. So I think a lot of it had to do with the way that it was dealt with, the way the issue was dealt with. Because I think a lot of people called into question maybe perhaps the answer that you gave, as opposed to the actual original sin, which isn't really a big deal in terms of that it's something that most people generally, at least once or twice in their lifetime, or maybe several thousand times in the case of other people, they actually do. You know?
Sure. Well, I guess like the funny thing about that computer is that the computer that where the screenshot was, it can't even run video.
Oh.
In fact, that's one reason why when I got on Kimmel, we had to do we had to tape the show from the studio, and they gave me a laptop in the studio to appear on the Wall of America because my computer didn't even have the capacity to do the feed from my apartment.
Wow.
And Mike, to basically change the subject, by the way, that you seem like an exceptionally charismatic guy. Where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years, assuming you actually do not win this congressional seat?
Well, actually, this has been a good experience for me. I have always wanted to do something in the conservative movement. And I have, I flirted with politics. I've been around politics since I was a toddler. But what happened in the course of this campaign is I believe in basically leadership by example. And I have a very, very good friend in the pro-life movement, Larry Sergnano. He sits there and he says, well, Mike, you write a check to pro-life, you send an editorial about pro-life, but you've never really gone to a demonstration. So why don't you join me at a demonstration? And so it wasn't until this campaign that I actually got involved in a pro-life demonstration. Now I'm at one like every week, getting involved with even like the gun rights movement, Second Amendment, and the other issues, religious freedom, conservative principles. I mean, I've been thinking that I guess my actions have basically been on the doctrine that the pen was mightier than the sword. But I think sometimes you do have to pound that sword, and I think that this campaign is giving me an opportunity to actually wave that sword a little bit more, and I think I'll be doing that a whole lot more.
Okay, I want to switch gears for a second and talk about the presidential campaign and the Republican.
Sure.
The Republican campaign as far as what's going on with Donald Trump and the conventions coming up, and now there's a movement regarding, delegate sovereignty outside it, so you don't have to deal with what the state rules are. And this is the one thing that people don't seem to understand. The state GOP rules are not applicable at the national convention. They never are. The only time where there was something actually that was added in for it was when 1976, when Gerald Ford was facing the insurgent Reagan. That's one of the times where they put in something stating that the bound delegates were going to be bound. So what is your position on that? As far as and first of all, who do you endorse? Who had you endorsed throughout the primary process, and what do you think should happen in Cleveland?
Sure. This is it. I mean, and this goes back to really our Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence basically says that we obey the will of the people. And if any form of government, it's very, very specific, it says if any form of government decides that they don't want to do that, then we have a right to abolish that. That's a political party as well. If we have chosen, the Republican Party has chosen a nominee, this is the process. You can't get to the convention and say, well, we've decided that we personally don't like that person, so we're going to throw them out and we're going to come up with a new process. That violates everything that we believe in.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily what the process is. The process is that the delegates are elected to go to Cleveland to make a vote on behalf of their constituencies. It's almost like in the House of Representatives, which you're running for. Those delegates represent the constituency in that congressional district.
Sure.
So if you have a campaign that's changing in real time, one of the issues that I've had primarily with Donald Trump was that he changed his tax plan after over 80% of the primary was completed. So he basically sold, 80% of the voters on one tax plan, They may have voted for him based on that tax plan, and then as soon as he was the presumptive nominee, he decided to change it. So in real time, if the candidates change, can the delegates not change?
Well, that's kind of the problem. That's kind of, I mean, like you can elect somebody president who's going to flip on you. I mean, that's the way that the process goes. I mean, it's not perfect. There are personal reasons why a lot of us don't like it, but the thing is that, I mean, that's the way that the process has been. You win the delegates, you get the you get the nomination. There are a lot of times, and in fact, it's axiomatic in politics that the person that can win the general election a lot of times, especially in the Republican primary, is not the one that wins the nomination because of the way that nomination politics goes. So everybody, at least some people, invariably at the end of any convention or going into any convention, is upset about the way that things are going to go. But just because more people this year are upset.
Okay, let me ask you because I understand you're a politician. You're running for office. So I'm getting and it sounds like you're very already well schooled and seasoned in being a politician, even though you haven't actually been elected yet, based on the answer you're giving. Listen, I want a straight answer. Should Trump get the nomination, and how do you feel about the way that he's changing in real time?
Yes, I do think that he should get the nomination.
Okay.
But the thing is that, yes, I am upset. I was upset about a lot of the things that he said in the course of his campaign to get the nomination. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of things that and I was very, very vocal about those things. Even though I supported Trump, I was very, very vocal in communicating to his people the things that I did not agree with. But the thing is that this is the process. That's the process. And we have to kind of abide by the process.
I understand, but the process can be manipulated, and that's kind of what we've had here. I think the fact that they didn't have a rule in place prior to the primary starting prohibiting non-Republicans, because let's be honest, the guy's not a freaking Republican running in our primary.
I definitely agree with that.
Exactly. So why is he running in our primary? So I think based on that alone, see, that's the thing. The whole delegate sovereignty movement, it's not a movement that's pro any particular candidate. It's just that the delegates were sent there to do a job, and in good faith and conscience, they should do the best job they possibly can and not be bound by unfair. Listen, why are some states proportional and why are some states winner take all?
Yeah, sure. But again, that is a local rule decision, and I totally support that. I mean, I don't want to have national committee telling a locality this is how you have to do it. We leave that stuff to the states. But the thing is that there is a great responsibility whether you're going into a convention, whether you're going into a primary, whether you're going into a general election, for voters to take more seriously the idea of finding out about that candidate. We rely as voters, not as politicians. We as voters rely too much on shortcuts. I mean, just in terms of this internet tab thing. I mean, people sat there and they looked at two internet browser tabs suggesting pornography and suddenly painted a life of sin based on two tabs. And I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of a jump. I mean, I wouldn't want to walk into court with a case saying, okay, this guy had two tabs, therefore he's a sex read. I wouldn't go into court with that case. But this is how we choose our candidate. Again, just like with the folks that they did the survey on, the Democrats and the Republicans looking at their education policy. Our voters, they call themselves informed, but a lot of them they're using shortcuts to get there. We need to do more research.
All right, Mike. I'm still trying to figure out how you actually stand being an independent candidate. So what I'm going to do, I'm gonna basically quick fire you a bunch of questions. And for example, I'll basically say Toyota, Ford, and you basically give me what car you prefer, basically. what brand? You'll basically say Toyota or Ford. And so first question, Angelina Jolie or Jennifer Aniston?
Jennifer Aniston.
Fair enough. Coke or Pepsi?
This is kind of a political answer. My best friend is like the spokesman for Coke. I have to say Coke.
Yeah, that's interesting. I kind of like that. I like that a little bit. And I'm going to throw you a little curveball here. Huma Abedin or Amal Clooney?
Oh, wow. That is hard. Clooney.
Yeah, you kind of got to go with Clooney, because if you could bang Clooney's broad, then I guess that puts you up higher up the totem pole.
Yeah,
in a sense. Then Anthony Weiner, his wife. You almost have to base it on sexual frustration, because people are rumored, like George Clooney is rumored to be gay, and obviously Anthony Weiner has some sort of sexual dysfunction that leads him to contact women on the internet and try to solicit them for sexual favors. So you have to kind of sit there and analyze, like, okay, who do you think would probably be the biggest tomcat in bed, based on the fact that they're probably sexually frustrated? I don't know. Amal Clooney is definitely prettier, though. Than Huma just has that face that's just very off-putting to me.
Yeah, it might be largely off-putting, too, because she's associated with
the Muslim Brotherhood,
yeah,
yes, exactly.
And Hillary Clinton.
And Hillary Clinton. No, it's basically. It's bad on any way that you slice it. Well, anyway, listen, Mike, in closing, because I don't want to take too much more of your time, what would you like to say to the voters of your congressional district if they're sitting on the fence, wondering on whether they're going to go left with the Democratic candidate, right with the Republican candidate, or whether they should go for you, the independent candidate? What do you have to say to them?
Sure. Well, I mean, basically it's this, is that one, if they're looking for somebody on the right, it's definitely not the Republican candidate. But the thing is that in 2016, it's about leadership, which I've got. It's about choice. And I think that we have to go to the right for our choice, and it's about time. Right now, America, the nation, the world is in a lot of trouble, and we're running out of time. And I think that I'm the candidate that can deliver on those things.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much. That was Mike Webb. Give them your website, your Twitter, all your information, so if anybody wants to get involved and help out your campaign, let them know where they can reach you.
Yeah, sure. I'm at mytrueconservative.com. And on Twitter, I am Mike Webb VA8.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And on the other side of this break, we have our interview from last week with Andrew Marr. If you didn't catch it, Andrew Marr with Warrior Angels Project. Please stay tuned for that right on the other side of the break.
Thank you, Mike.
So much.
Thank you, Mike.
Hey, thank you. Take care, guys. I'm from California.
Oh.
Find the Lanterns Radio Network on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes.
They can intercept this transmission at any time, so I'll be brief. The fight is here. The time is now. Go behind enemy lines.
YouTube, and other social media by searching keyword Lanterns Buzz or Lanterns Radio Network. You're listening to the number one source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Julio Rivera Show is on.
Okay, good.
We got a little bit on the left and right edge.
Okay.
We're kind of saying that.
All right, fantastic. All right, I'm just going to go at... Hi, everyone. This is Julio Rivera of the Julio Rivera Show, and I'm here with Andrew Marr of Warrior Angels Foundation. Andrew Marr is a veteran. He's a hero, American hero, and he's doing a lot to help veterans. And today we're going to ask him some questions so you can get to know him a little bit better. Andrew, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, first of all, Julio, thanks for having me on in Times Square, no less. Pretty cool deal. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Texas, playing athletics, football, led to college, played college football. Once that ended, I I really felt compelled to enter the military. Felt a sense of duty where other guys were laying it on the line in combat, my age, and I thought, I'm done chasing my own selfish ambitions, so to speak. This is the honorable thing to do, the right thing to do. So that led into the Army. Chose specifically to go into Special Forces from there, and that led into my, career as a Special Forces Green Beret for about 9 years.
And tell me a little bit about your service, the 9 years you spent in the Special Forces.
Yeah, 3 combat deployments, lots of trips to Southeast Asia, training up the different, our allied forces in Southeast Asia, and Afghanistan was all of my combat rotations.
Okay. Now, while you were there, unfortunately, you had a couple of instances where you were injured, correct?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
It's interesting because it was never an injury that caused us to think, okay, there's something wrong, or we need to go to the hospital, or higher levels of care. So traumatic brain injury is what it was, and it's from just the general life of a soldier or an operator, right? So my specialty was a Special Forces engineer. So when deployed, I'm an expert in demolitions. And so in and around countless explosions over those 9 years, hundreds if not thousands. It's kind of hard to quantify. So one of my roles was a breacher, and what that means is basically it is getting into denied points of entry. All right, whether it's a door, whether it's a wall, a window, and there's different ways to do that. Mechanical, so there's a lock on there. We can just use a bolt cutter and break it. That's the easy way. Path of least resistance, always what you want to take. But oftentimes, sometimes you have to use explosive charges. So I would make surgical explosive charges in place at certain spots on those denied points of entry. We get back a safe distance and then, initiate that explosion to go into the house or wherever and do our other jobs there.
And you were doing a lot of door-to-door when you were there?
Yeah, wow. Absolutely. And then to be proficient at that, you have to train in regular scenarios to do that in real-world applications, right? So before I ever did one that was a real-world situation, I had already done hundreds, in training. So just tons and tons of situations where we were exposed to that blast. And again, that's everybody. But what we now know, Julio, is those blast waves that are propagated from that explosion, they move at the speed of sound and move through your body. And what it's shown with the scientific field is that it will actually shake and move your brain back and forth and off the skull, banging off the skull, so to speak, and then actually getting there and doing more damage inside the brain. And by itself, one of them, probably not that big of a deal. Two of them, maybe not that big of a deal. But when you have them repetitive over again over the course of, for me, it was 9 years. Some guys more than 20. But that is very damning to the brain because it doesn't have time to heal itself. And so because of that is why I started having issues later on that were stemmed directly from being in that line of fire, so to speak. And I was only knocked unconscious one time in combat. So it wasn't like, it wasn't easy to identify when we were having problems because there was no big significant trauma to me, or so we thought. You know what I mean? I didn't have a cracked cranium, I wasn't missing any limbs, and this is the case with a lot of people right now. And
it's almost like an unseen injury.
It's invisible. Exactly. Because, like I said, the blast wave is propagated, moves through you, and then what it's doing in your brain is just altering your brain to function correctly inside. So none of that can be seen, right? So what happened there was after my last deployment, which is in 2013, I didn't start having any issues until 4 months later. And the issues that started was energy issues. Then I started having short-term memory loss. I had trouble speaking normal vocabulary. I would lose words. I couldn't find them all the time, which was troubling, but not enough for me to say anything. And from there, I started getting migraine headaches, and it would cause my vision to go blurry, and then I would go into double vision. every day. And from there, I started having balance problems. And then I started having behavioral and psychological issues. So I had all those physical manifestations first, and then it was depression, and anxiety and panic attacks, rage. And when I started having these feelings of depression and anxiety, it was so foreign to me. I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but I had no reason to be depressed. I loved what I did. Loved my wife. Had 4 children, had 5 children now, loved my children, was in the exact thing I wanted to be doing. You know what I mean? We were at the point in our life where we wanted to be, so I couldn't grasp it. I was like, I don't want to be this way, but yet biologically, for some reason, something's happening. I don't know what it is. And I started to think I was going insane.
Well, let me ask you, did you reach out to anyone at that point, or did the Veterans Affairs, or was there any outlets or avenues that you can reach out to at that point?
There is, but you don't want to say anything, right? Because your role on the team is so important to you, and that when you experience that life and you're in a small team like that with high-performing individuals, you don't want to let anybody down, right? And the beautiful thing about a high-performing team like that is it raises the bar of everybody's performance. So everybody's always hitting on all cylinders. So I was like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want anybody to think that I'm not capable of doing my job. And our job entails getting everybody home, you know what I mean, to their loved ones. So you sit on it until you can't sit on it anymore, right? So what I did to combat that was I started drinking heavily. And that had never been an issue in my life, just drank socially to have a good time, but now I was drinking to get through the day, start in the morning until I passed out in the evening. And I started to ask for help, and the problem was that we found in the military medical system is they weren't really trying to find out why these issues were happening, right? And so instead of doing a good detailed analysis to figure everything out, they just started putting me on medications, to treat these symptoms, the trail of symptoms that we were talking about. The next thing I know, I'm on 13 different medications. And now I'm having even more problems than started with because these mind-bending psychotropics and narcotics that I was put on had me lose complete touch with reality, And so that is a slippery slope when you have all those symptoms we talked about, drinking heavily, and now throwing mind-altering pharmaceuticals is a recipe for disaster. And that is the exact reason, Julio, we have all these suicides today. That is the cycle.
Yeah, and it's insane that instead of looking for a permanent solution to those issues, modern medicine just likes to, as they say, apply Band-Aids to it. And eventually you get a gash that's too big. You can't just apply a Band-Aid to it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you found out through research and a little bit more about what Warrior Angels does for people?
Well, thanks for asking. That was a good, great segue. What our trials and tribulations through that system, we had an awakening, and it was, I came to a crossroads and a decision point, and I was like, I can continue on this path they've laid out for me, and it's gonna kill me, and that's gonna ruin my family, and it's gonna ruin everything I love. And I was told basically, hey, this is the new you, find a way to live within these parameters. And we refused to accept that. I was like, because I never had any solid answers, so we wanted some solid answers. So I started doing my own research and started looking into the scientific literature because I became really interested in why things work for some people and then why things don't work for others, and what is the reason behind that, and why are we doing the things that we're doing specifically in this area of traumatic brain injury. And I got to learn a lot about the brain, the neuroendocrine system, hormones, and how all that is interrelated and responsible for essentially making us who we are, right? So what the research led me to was a doctor out in California, Dr. Mark Gordon. He is the premier neuroendocrinologist in the world, and specifically with treating TBI. And so we were making some waves, checking out different alternative treatments. Got picked up by some different news publications, and he read an article on me and got in touch with me through email. And he said, listen, we've been helping veterans since 2009. I've been treating TBI since 2004. Here's my credentials. Here's the science behind how we treat the underlying condition. And if you're interested, give me a call. We'll talk about getting you on the right track. And so I listened. He sent me a podcast he had done with Joe Rogan. And it was a guy he had on there. One of his patients was a former Navy corpsman. And he was on, when he came to Dr. Gordon, 16 different medications, had multiple attempts at suicide, and lived a horrible existence. And through this treatment that Dr. Porter offered, these protocols, Matt he's off all medications. He's back and functioning at a high level. He's screenwriting in LA. He's a screenwriter. Wow. You know what I mean? Incredible story. But what was interesting, Julio, was everything that he was saying, all his symptoms, everything he was going through, was like somebody was looking, like I was looking at myself in the mirror and talking to me. You know what I mean? It was exactly what I was going through. So then to hear Dr. Gordon articulate why and how those symptoms originate and what is the genesis of that was fascinating to me. And what it is that what we know is these blast waves that rock the brain causes two things. It causes the what's called post-traumatic inflammation, which is swelling, and it causes the brain then to be deficient in the hormones that are produced in the brain. When that happens, when those become deficient off, we start to have these declines like I was just talking about earlier. So to treat it, we do an objective laboratory test to see if you do have an inflammation and if your hormones are not where they need to be, not the correct physiological levels. And by identifying that, we can identify that is the root cause of these other cascades of symptoms, right? So you want to try to follow those symptoms all the way up to the hole in dam. You know, where is the hole in dam? Where is the original problem? Underlying condition is what we say. And so identify the underlying condition, and then we treat the underlying condition. And we do it in two phases. Phase one is using natural supplementation to get rid of the inflammation in the brain, the oxidative stressors, the free radicals. And again, it's done through natural supplements.
Now, what supplements in particular?
N-acetylcysteine and a few other ones. But we have a lot of information on our website we'll put out there later. But so get the brain back to what we call a neuropermissive environment, a way where it can heal, go through the healing process on its own. Because when it has that inflammation, it can't do any of the things that it's intended or needs to do. So get the inflammation gone. Then we address the hormonal imbalances. And if somebody, so the pituitary gland is in the brain, right? That controls 9 hormones, all hormones that are synthesized in the brain. We can say, okay, this person is deficient in this because of the blast wave damage, so we have to put those hormones back in his body, right? Because he needs it, or she needs it to function optimally. And so we replace or replenish whatever they're found to be deficient in, all right? And again, that's an objective measurement. An objective meaning, hey, this is the data, and there's no opinion about it. It's fact, right? Yeah. So we have the facts, we treat it accordingly, and when you do it in that manner, we have over 1,300 documented cases, TBI cases, of a dramatic improvement exactly like mine. Wow. Right? So we have all the scientific literature to support it. Now Dr. Gordon revolutionized his protocols in treating TBI, 1,300 documented cases. We set up the Warrior Angels Foundation specifically to help veterans and service members who think they might have had a TBI or who suffer from post-traumatic stress. And when we do this, when we apply these metrics and these protocols, again, they improve. And now we have over 120 cases through the foundation that are very similar to my story. You know what I mean? And so that's why it's important. That's why I'm so happy we met at CPAC when we did, and meeting other people along the way that have outlets like this, so we can put out this information because it's good for a lot of reasons. One, yes, we want to treat the veteran issue, but it is not a veteran issue, this injury. It is it's an issue that affects all of humanity. So our intent is to get the information out so other people can say, oh, okay, I can apply that same thing to my life and also have the improvements. And so that's why I want to get the information out.
So now, what's the process as far as of being treated? And how long does it take? And generally, take me through that process for anybody that may be watching that maybe feels that they suffer from those symptoms.
Great question. you come to our website, www.waftbi.org. All right, if you want to sign up for treatment, you can sign up there. So you go in, you'll fill out our intake form, which gives us this basic information, and then through email, we'll get all the other information that we need to make a correct analysis of where you're at. We'll verify your service. Once we have all those prerequisites, you're then cleared and ready to be funded. All right, so when that happens, we then take that file and we electronically move it to Dr. Gordon's office, Millennium Health Centers, through HIPAA-compliant encrypted software, so everybody knows. And from there, we send a lab test kit to your house, to your geographical location. Our lab's in Florida, so if you lived in New York City, they would send it from Florida, it would arrive in New York City. We then will send a mobile phlebotomist to your house to draw your blood. They will package it, send it back to Florida. They'll get the data, get the results, send those results to Dr. Gordon in California. He processes the information, writes a detailed analysis and report on your individual case, sends that to you via FedEx and then an email. And then we make planning considerations to bring the two of you together via Skype or some other teleconferencing communication platform, telehealth. And between that platform, you'll have a one-on-one with Dr. Gordon. We'll go through everything in detail and give you a clear understanding of where these symptoms that you're suffering from originated and what is the root cause, and then two, how we're going to treat that root cause. And then after that's done, he'll send us the Warrior Angels Foundation invoice. We'll fund it. Protocols will go out that day or the next day, be mailed to your house, and that's how you'll start your protocols. So we brought world-class care to the veterans or service members wherever they're at without having to uproot them from their geographical location, without having to send them to a doctor's office, without having to send them to a waiting room or waiting line. And we treat them the way they should be treated, with respect and like they are an individual, because everybody is individualized, so your protocols are individualized based on specifically what you need and what you're lacking. And so
when I guess a phlebotomist will check out and see specifically, because everything in your brain is like, it's all chemicals, and it's all, you can look at it on a chart, what you're strong in, what you're not in. So I guess the care, I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know how to describe this, but more or less we try to get them to healthy levels hormonally in their brain. And it's different for each person because everybody's body is different in a sense.
You're absolutely right. So they have these ranges, and this is really interesting. So there's these reference ranges that they say, okay, an adult male 35 should be in these ranges. But really, those ranges are only applicable to whoever did that study in that very time period. And it's important to know that because it might say the range references 1 to 10, right? And anything at 5 and above is where you need to be. And so if somebody came in at a 5, and they were complaining of all these symptoms, conventional medicine will say, well, you're at a 5, so there's nothing wrong with you. We're saying treat the individual. So he's saying he has all the symptoms. He's at a 5. He's 35 years old. He should be like at an 8. So let's treat him and see what happens. And that's why you need a very well-versed, neuroendocrinologist to do this. But under his care, he can implement these protocols, and then we'll do a follow-up lab in 3 months, see if the levels have raised, and then subjectively ask the person, how are you feeling? So we'll give them a questionnaire, we'll get their feedback, and oh my goodness, we treated him because he was a 5, now he's at a 7.2, and he says he's never felt better in his life.
So this is a true treatment towards a cure,
right?
Because they're permanently helped after.
Exactly.
Wow.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
It's incredible. It is so encouraging and awe-inspiring to hear that there is an answer out there just like this. And when we think about it, it's logical, but it's not widely accepted right now. But it's outside of the confines of conventional medicine, but very much in the confines of science, and that's important for us.
Now, how is the medical community adapting to this? I mean, are you getting pushback by, I guess, the pharmaceutical industry, or are doctors in general positive about this type of care, or where are people feeling?
In general, if anything is new or different, it's met with resistance, just because it's unknown, and I can respect that. What's encouraging now is last week they had this groundbreaking scientific report came out where they basically have validated the blast waves and what it does to a brain. And for the first time, we have the science where we can truly understand what kind of damage that does. What that report did, what that scientific finding did, was validated everything Dr. Gordon's been saying for the last 12 years. Validated that, and now we're having more and more science, more articles come out. So people will be resistant to it, but they can't be resistant to the facts. Well, they can, but you can either choose to accept the facts or you don't want to. But that's your call. You might look like a moron, but that's up to you. That's the beauty of the First Amendment. But that's the deal. Yeah. So there is resistance always, just because this is unknown. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be pursued.
Exactly. Why don't you tell us exactly if anybody wants to donate? Because I'm sure the type of treatment obviously is costly. First of all, how are you guys being funded, and where can people donate to?
Yeah. We were funded by private donations from Americans who said, "Oh, we really get behind a organization that's founded and run by combat veterans that have come up with that are challenging the status quo and have provided a superior alternative." So anybody that is interested in that can come to our website, waftbi.org. We have a multitude of ways people can get involved, doing your own fundraiser. Go to the website if you're interested. We've got a lot of stuff there. It's very
so that's
cool.
waftbi.org.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's what's really exciting. The Congressional Budget Office report 2012 issued a report on what the VA spends to pay for TBI and post-traumatic stress, what the taxpayers spend, really. And it's about $15,000 per veteran for that. And that's
per affected veteran.
Right. Yeah, for traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, on average, according to the CBO 2012 report. So with that's the treatment protocol is medication and psychotherapy. Okay, so it's not treating the underlying condition. People aren't getting better. Our costs are a third of the cost, and they get less expensive as we go on because you require less labs and probably less supplements as you continue to improve. So
because your body adapts to it, and then you're able to kind of normalize.
We can get it back to what we call a neuropermissive environment where the brain can now regenerate and heal. It's going to do the things it needs to do. Wow. And we might need to continue the hormones for your lifetime because of structural damage that was there. But again, that's dependent on the individual. We'll find out later just by running tests, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But again, that's why it's encouraging. So we've set up a revolutionary system where we can treat anybody anywhere without a doctor's office, without a waiting line, and we're doing it for a third of the cost. And we are very much the American spirit of, hey, we're not going to complain, we're not going to whine, we're going to figure out a way to do it better, more cost efficient, more time efficient, more effective, and we're going to bring it on a mass scale to everybody who's in need.
All right, now have you guys approached, I guess, the military, the United States Armed Forces, regarding this? And have you gotten any feedback from them? Are they receptive towards maybe implementing this?
Yeah. We're in talks with both sides, the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration. And again, with us being able to show the empirical evidence of what we're doing with treating people, having scientific literature to support it, showing the cost effectiveness of it, that starts to change minds. But what changes more minds is when you hear the stories of other people who's had their lives turned back on, right? So you learn all those things. So yes, we're talks with leadership on both sides of the house, and it is our intent to get these protocols implemented in the DoD, in the VA, by 2020. And by doing that, we can essentially get rid of these problems that we're having from traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress.
You know, it's really a shame that the process doesn't move along quicker because, unfortunately, I mean, give us, what are the statistics, as far as veterans right now with the suicide rate and whatnot?
The report that they put out is 22 suicides a day.
22 a day, wow.
Over 380,000 have been diagnosed with traumatic brain injury. Maybe as high as 25% have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. And so those numbers are significant because that was just the cases that people put their hand up and said, I need some treatment or I need something. 10 years ago, we didn't even know about that much about traumatic brain injury at all. So there's a ton of people out there that are suffering that do not know that this is the reason why. You know what I mean? So those numbers are probably higher. So it's a big deal. In America, I think 5.3 Americans live with a permanent disability as a result of traumatic brain injury. So I mean, it is an issue that affects all of humanity.
Wow.
but there is an answer, and there is hope, and we've proven it. So we come bearing good news and not mongering fear.
No, that's definitely, and this is such a positive. I'd like to try to promote this as much as I can. I'd actually like to link this to my website, actually, to conservatorican.com. I'll put a permanent link up there because I think it's important that people know about this and reach out to you, as soon as they can, because every moment is precious. I mean, if somebody may want to reach out for help, they may not know how to reach out for help, or you may know somebody who needs this type of help. Please direct them to waftbi.org.